Yeesh, that's a lot of volume. And we are live. Hello, everyone. This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Do Rebel. Welcome to the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues, episode number 334. This is Ask Me Anything with yours truly. Before we get too far down today's rabbit hole, I'd like to um, ask you guys to go to this GoFundMe page that you see up on the screen here. My student Wayne Quinton down in Barbados, who runs the original Unified Martial Art Academy. This is the page set up for his wife Petal's fight against breast cancer. So I would really appreciate it if you guys would go there and contribute what you can to that fund. So that's the webpage right there, and please do what you can. Okay, so we are going to get into this. Let me make sure that everything is working as it should. That looks right, and that looks right, and I can hear myself. So I think we should be okay, right? Let's see. Okay, so Douglas Melchert is on, so that means that we're good on Facebook. I don't see anybody from the YouTube yet, and I was going to tell you guys that yesterday my student Bucky and I we had a prolonged conversation about Jeet Kune Do, and as a result of that conversation, it'll probably end up in two issues of the I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast over the next month or so, right? But so this is Ask Me Anything. So if you have questions for me, I have a couple questions that came in. Actually, a few questions that came in beforehand, but I will try to keep an eye on the comment page here and see how much trouble we can get ourselves into. Um, I have been getting myself in trouble with my good friend Anthony Casey over in Ireland. I guess he has resurfaced on the Facebook pages, and so he's already berated me again because he says I don't have enough real Jeet Kune Do people on the show. Um, that I should have Thomas Marks because Thomas Marks has the biggest YouTube channel on JKD channel on YouTube, right? I mean, congrats to him if that's really the case. But Anthony should realize that I would be doing things a lot differently if I was producing these podcasts in order to attract attention and get as many views as possible and what have you. I had one guy who, because of the language that I used for the last the last broadcast, says that that from my language, I presume that either I presumed or he presumed that I know that I speak for everybody, that I know what everybody thinks and what have you. So I will go to great pains again to point out what should be obvious to thinking people. I cannot speak for anybody other than myself. The only way I could speak for somebody else is if that person authorizes me. So, like for example, if my good friend Ron Reagan Goldstein says, "Oh yeah, Seafood Dwight, you can speak for me anytime that you want." If he gives me carte blanche, right, to speak for him, which he would never do, thank God, right? Right, that would be something different. If my other good friend Joseph Sanzone over on the YouTube, if he said, "Yes, Seafood White, you can speak for me anytime that you want," that'd be a different deal. Nobody has ever given me carte blanche to speak for them. So please get this through your head. When I say something, I can't stop to go, "in my opinion," every time I say something. So just understand that if I tell you, well, such and such and such is the case. That's my opinion. Okay, right? Can we stop with this nonsense now? All right. So let's see if I think Brooks Long just asked a question, so we'll do that first, and then go to the stuff that came in beforehand. Brooks wants to know, what is the most interesting thing you've seen in the JKD world so far in 2025? Um, the most interesting thing in the JKD world that I've seen since 20 in the past 5 months. Um, Damn, Brooks, I don't think I've seen anything. I can't say I've seen anything that stands out. Um, what's interesting? Well, I think there's a slight uptick in people who are offering online courses. I've seen that, um, which is not necessarily that interesting. Um, I'll tell you what is interesting. It's to see how some people. No, it's not. That's not interesting because it's my observation of people, and like I can tell. Yeah, it's not even interesting. The things that I've seen about some people in the JKD world, not at all, Brooke. So forget that. So I think the most interesting I've seen is a an uptick in people offering online courses and what have you. Um, I'll tell you what is it. What another thing that's interesting as I think about it, because I want to give Brooks. He's a good guy, so I want to give him a substantial answer. Nick Faruqi's book, Mastering the Martial Art Business. So I got to read. I got to read it on my ride up to Pompano to train with Ronnie Reagan today, and it, it, Nick's book is fantastic. It's really good. It's really really good. Um, Not just for JKD people. In fact, you know what? It's probably not even that good for JKD people because JKD people, when it comes to business, in my experience, the majority of them don't even have the the mindset that is needed to be successful in business. Most of them. I'm not saying all of them because I have very successful JKD colleagues, right? So not all of them. So Nick's book is not a JKD book, right? It's good for anybody going into the martial art business, right? And so um, he and I were talking, and I moved stuff around, and he's going to come on the dialogues next Friday, and we're going to discuss the book. By next Friday, I will have finished it completely. I was telling him I have a personal quirk. If you ever seen like my notebooks, right? If you ever look in my notebooks, you'll notice that I I start my notebooks on the back page, and I go backwards. So that's why, even though this notebook is full or relatively full, yeah, actually it is almost full, right? This is the front of the book that still has blank pages. So I don't know where it came from, but that's just a thing that I do. And so with this book, for some reason, I started reading it from the back, from the last chapters, um, backwards, and came across the chapter on building a legacy, and then the chapter on how to be an instructor slash student, simultaneously an instructor and student. And it was really, really good. So we had a little conversation on the train this morning, and I convinced him to come on the show, and we'll discuss his book in depth tomorrow. I think Brooks asked if it's available on Amazon. I'm pretty sure it is. Mastering the Martial Arts Business by Nick Faruqi. Brooks. If I can get an image of it, I'll try to put it up later. Right? Okay. So let's see. Let me make sure that all the boys are here. Okay. Doug Melcher is here. Ronnie Joseph Sanzoni, Brooke, Terry. Hey, Terry Valla, Alfred Magnon. What's up? Right, Justin Earhart is here. Uh, Red Tiger and Mick Tully. All right, cool. Okay, where's Mark Black? Delinquent. Right. Okay. Since Tim is here, let me find his question. Um, so I saw it. I didn't read it, Tim. So now I have to think about it before I give you a good answer. So Tim says, getting a bit philosophical here, but does JKD exist? Well, let's start. Let's deal with that part, right? So this is the thing. This is why always have this at hand. This is why this is the best book and the best title, right? The art and philosophy. So since it's both things, the art and the philosophy, let's call that the physical and the esoteric, right? So does it exist? Yes. Can it be invisible? Yes. So can it? So Bucky, if Bucky was here, he would love this. So yes, it can exist at the same time that it doesn't exist, right? It exists when it's observed, but then when it's not being observed, no, it doesn't exist, right? But to take this a little bit deeper, right? But wait, what's the other part here? To use a geometric analogy, is JKD like a circle or of a form clearly defined but unachievable in the real world? No, it is achievable, right? But understand this: since JKD is a process, right? You're always going to be going through the process. So you're never going to get to a point in JKD where you go, "That's it, I got it, I'm done. I got everything that there is to get in JKD." That's why when you talk about circles and circumference in JKD, it's something like the center of a circle without circumference, something like that, right? Or almost like a circle with no edges, or something like that, right? So it is achievable because the second that you start investing in the training, in the practice of Jeet Kune Do, you start to achieve. But because there is no end product, so there is essentially no end in sight, it is achievable. You are achieving something, but you're never going to get to the point where you go, that's it. Everything that JKD offers has been delivered to me. Everything that I can possibly do in JKD, I have now done. No, the art of no limitation and no way is way, you're never going to finish it like that. Right. So then the third part of Tim's question is it more intuitive, undefined, but knowable? I wouldn't say it's undefined. Um, it's just not defined for everyone the same way. So that's kind of what I was talking about. Was it this week or the week before? No, I can't even remember. Right. Um, but when I was talking about, JKD being an unfinished system, the idea of the system is just that everybody goes in the same direction. Everybody is using the same guidelines. But the thing about Jeet Kune Do is that nobody is going to end up looking exactly the same way as anybody else, and they shouldn't. Okay, and that's where, to a certain degree, Jeet Kune Do is a departure, even though it can be a system, even though it can be organized, even though it can be, um, when I say standardized, I don't mean everybody looking the same way, being identical to everybody else. That's not what I mean by standardized. By standardized, I mean have high standards. There's a lot of to quote my good friend G. Anthony Joseph, there's a lot of lackadaisical there's a lot of Jeet Kune Do out there in the world. So no, By standardize, I mean have some serious standards. Bruce Lee set some high standards. Bruce Lee is phenomenal. Maybe we can't um, achieve the same standards of like fitness and strength and whatever that he could. Who knows? But at least you have a standard. At least you have something at which to aim. So it can be defined, but it is not, and it is intuitive, and it can be known for sure, right? I don't think that Jeet Kune Do has to be wrapped too tightly in a lot of esoterica, because that can get in the way of people furiously pursuing the art. You know how you make a lot of discoveries about yourself and your mind when you push your body? That's a JKD approach, or should be a JKD approach, right? Really work your butt off and see what kind of growth that produces in your mind. Okay, so I'm gonna end with that, Red Tiger, and you let me know if that was substantial enough. Okay, Alfred says, do you still teach the curriculum how you used to, based on curriculum sheets for the various levels and T-shirt colors, or have you refined those curricula with time? So since it's a small group of mixed levels, Alfred, all that we used to do, you'll remember when we had the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday morning classes, those were always mixed level. So with the group in Tropical Park now, it's the same thing. So essentially, what I try to do, depending on the size of the group, what I try to do is exactly what I did in the morning. So I don't think you trained in the mornings, if I remember correctly, Alfred. But people who train with me in the mornings would remember. In fact, when somebody was signing up, and we knew because of their work and life schedule that they would be training in the mornings, I would tell them early on that expect in the morning class to be fairly comfortable, even though it's new to you, be fairly comfortable with some of the stuff. And then at some point, you're going to be like, oh, this is not as comfortable. And then at another point, you're going to be like, what the heck is this? And that's because in that mixed level class, I was going beginner, phase one, phase two, phase three within that 90-minute session. So we kind of do that in the park, kind of, but it's not that big a group that I need to. You know, the morning class used to have, the morning class could have like 10, 12, 15 people or what have you in it, right? At various times. So the group in the park is not that big, so we don't really have to do that. But using curriculum sheets is still advantageous no matter what, right? Cass Magna and I were having a conversation about that. And, he was talking about how some instructors don't let their students know what's on the curriculum. So people are training and wondering, well, am I getting any good? But they don't know what it is that they're supposed to be getting good at, because one, either there is no curriculum, or two, there is a curriculum, but it's not shown, or it's not explained, or it's not even given to the students. So everybody needs to know what it is that they're working on. So even though I have not given out curriculum sheets, because again, it's such a small group, but here's what my students know, and if they don't, then it's my fault. But they know that in the beginning we work on coordination, that the emphasis is on coordination, and then at intermediate levels we want to take the coordination drills and convert them into what we call combat drills. And then at the advanced level, we want to take the coordination drills and the combat drills and blend them together into what we call flow drills. And then at the very advanced level, it's freelance. And you can't freelance until you've been through coordination, combat, and flow. I mean, you could freelance from day one. Your class setting could be show up, right? Warm up, do some exercises, uh, hit the equipment, and then spar. And at no point did you work on refining the technique, but you have people trying it out for real, especially if you put them up in gear, right? You're missing an important element, a really, really important element. So there's not many, but there's several different ways that you could organize the structure of your class and what have you. So I don't use this. I don't have to use the sheets, the curriculum sheets, as prolifically as I did in the big school, right? And we're not really, no, but I have all that stuff still, Alfred. And so if I was to ever um, reborn a unified martial art academy, we could slot that stuff right back in. But right now, there isn't really a need for me to stick to that as diligently as I did when I was training 200 people or what have you. Um, as far as curriculum refinements, so actually that's interesting because somebody asked me, and sometimes people send in the questions and they don't want me to reveal their names and what have you. So one of the questions was, what is something in your JKD journey that you used to believe but no longer do, and what caused that change? So okay, let me no, let me not blend those two. So have I refined the curricula over the years? Yes. I'll Well, I don't know if it's refining, Alfred, but I'll tell you this. When we got into the following Sifu Dan and what have you, and we got into the Muay Thai and all that. One of the things that he did was to go, for example, from like lead kick to cross hook cross, right? Because that's how it's done in the Muay Thai. To a certain degree, that's found, or you can find it in box française or what have you. But I never really adopted that into my curriculum because it didn't emphasize the lead weapon as much as I wanted to. So we would modify lead kick, cross hook cross into lead kick, jab cross hook, or lead kick, double jab cross, or what have you. So that I don't know if that's a refinement or if that's just a modification of stuff that was given to me. Um, yeah, I don't think I'm talented enough, Alfred, to refine stuff, but I can switch stuff around. Right? Okay. All right. I'm gonna move on. Right. So Jeet Kune Do bouncer. What is your opinion, and what Sifu Bill Sang said that Jeet Kune Do isn't relevant now in 2025 compared to MMA and Jiu Jitsu? And do you believe Bruce Lee's Jun Fan Kung Fu will die? No. So let me do the second part first, right? So Bruce Lee's, well, okay. Here's the thing. If we want to get technical and semantic and pedantic, right? Bruce Lee's Jun Fan Kung Fu is already dead, so to speak, right? As my good friend Richard Torres will say, once Bruce Lee called his art Jeet Kune Do, he never referred to it again as Jun Fan Kung Fu, right? So I'm not sure if you're actually referring to pre 1967 stuff, right, Bouncer, or if you were referring to Bruce Lee's art of Jeet Kune Do, but you just happen to call it Jun Fan Kung Fu, right? So I'm not sure. But in any case, I don't think any aspect of Bruce Lee's art will ever die. Now, could it disappear even more from the martial art landscape? Possibly, yes, because that is in the first part of your question, right? How relevant is Jeet Kune Do compared to MMA and Jiu Jitsu? Well, imagine if there had been a Jeet Kune Do competition, right? Jeet Kune Do sport competition that had captured the imagination, the attention, had captured the attention of the entire world. Imagine if one of us in the JKD world had the foresight and the knowledge and the ability to market and what have you, and we had created a sport competition, an athletic competition based on Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do. Now, of course, there would have been a lot of controversy over that because there would have been a bunch of people going, you guys are wrong. Bruce Lee wasn't about sport. Bruce Lee was about self-defense. Kick him in the nuts, kick him in the knee, finger jab him in the eyes. What's this sport thing? Jeet Kune Do doesn't have rules. Jeet Kune Do is not sport or whatever. But because we had created that competitive arena, JKD schools were some of the most packed with students around the world. Imagine the conversation that we would be having now if something like that had happened in the 1990s. Imagine. So, Jeet Kune Do's lack or perceived lack or lack of perceived relevance in 2025 is simply because if you go martial art, what's the catchphrase now? See, I'm old enough to remember when you guys are not going to believe this. There was a time when around the world, right? Karate was Japanese and judo was Chinese. You guys are not going to believe that, but you're not old enough to know that. Then we wised up and we learned that karate and judo were both Japanese, but kung fu was Chinese. In any case, people would still call and ask if you had karate. Then people would call and ask if you had kung fu in the 1970s when that TV show hit the air. Then in 1992, I think it was, for a short time, people would call and ask about Aikido because of Steven Seagal and Above the Law. I don't know, since I've been out of the profession, the commercial, the big school atmosphere for 10 years. I'm not sure what people call and ask, but I wouldn't be surprised if people call and ask if you have jujitsu these days, or if people call and ask if you have MMA, because with the public, certain catchphrases catch on. Learn to speak, Dwight. Certain catchphrases become dominant in society, and then that's it. So Jeet Kune Do, in terms of relevance, yeah, I would say it's been usurped for sure, and maybe not even usurped. It just fell out of favor because in Prior to 1993, in my experience here in Miami, Jeet Kune Do sold itself. You just had to have a Yellow Pages ad, and you had to have a presence on the internet, and people would beat a path to your door. After UFC 1, the landscape started to change without a doubt. So that's what I imagine Bill is referring to. That, but of course, see, for people like me and people like a lot of you, Jeet Kune Do is still relevant. But if I understand correctly what Bill was saying, out there in the mainstream, no, Jeet Kune Do is not relevant. In fact, out there in the mainstream, the conundrum for a very long time has been this: how come Bruce Lee is so popular, so well known, but his art isn't? I used to do this from the stage. If the opportunity ever presented itself, I used to do this from the stage, sometimes in front of like close to 1,000 people or what have you, right? And the question would be, right, raise it would be the instruction would be, raise your hand if you know who Bruce Lee is. Well, a thousand hands would go up, right? Now the follow-up question is, raise your hand if you know what Jeet Kune Do is. And now a substantial amount of hands would not go up. So that's always been the conundrum. Everybody knows who Bruce Lee is because he is a cultural icon, but it's only the martial artists in the room that are going to know the name Jeet Kune Do. Everybody in the room would recognize an image of Bruce Lee, but flash the words Jeet Kune Do on the screen right after the image of Bruce Lee, and not as many people would recognize it. That's just the way it is. So it will never die because there will always be people like the collective us, right? There will always be people like us that maintain it to a certain degree, but its relevance, I don't know. Um, it'll be relevant to us. It'll never die for us, but I don't know if we will ever be able to recapture the glory days of the 80s and 90s when Jeet Kune Do was a fixture in magazines and what have you, right? So I hope that was not too long an answer, right, and a good enough answer for you, my friend. Um, Doug asks, did JKD start when Bruce Lee grew up in China, or did it start after he moved to the United States? If you want the esoteric answer, right, it started the moment Bruce Lee was born. Right? But remember that Bruce Lee didn't grow up in China. Bruce Lee grew up in Hong Kong, right? Which was not China at the time, was a British crown colony. And so, no, but technically, Jeet Kune Do is a thing. Bruce Lee's ideas. So, Bruce Lee's ideas about martial art probably started to change. I would say started to change substantially, started to change initially when he landed in Seattle. Okay. And then started to change substantially after the fight in Oakland with Wong Jack Man. And then ultimately, I say in 1966, not 1967, um, the name, the idea of intercepting as the most efficient method of counteroffense, that idea um, solidified or culminated in the late 60s, and that's where the name was born. So I think it would be safe to say it's after he moved to the States, and certainly not in Hong Kong when he was growing up. Right. So Jeet Kune Do Bouncer says, it seems most second and third generation are not teaching Junfan Kung Fu and are now teaching more Muay Thai and Jiu Jitsu for money reasons and popularity. Mm, well, I don't know. I can't. I can't make a statement as to the motives behind people teaching Muay Thai and Jiu Jitsu. I imagine you could say it's. You could easily say it's for more money because there is a thing in business about giving the public what it wants, right? And so, if, like we were just talking about, if the public now knows that Muay Thai and Jiu Jitsu blended together is a thing called mixed martial arts, and everybody always wants to see, oh, everybody always wants to be, not everybody, but a lot of people all want to be a part of that which is popular, that which is well known, because there's security that is derived from that. So if you're talking about Jeet Kune Do instructors who appear to be emphasizing jujitsu and Muay Thai, and that their JKD has been um, relegated to the rear, right? And it's not as important. Then, yeah, I understand it. Um, Personally, I wouldn't do that, right? Because, see, think about this, right? Okay, so people love Muay Thai and people love jujitsu and what have you. Okay. But if, as a Jeet Kune Do instructor, what you do is to teach straight ahead Muay Thai, right? And straight ahead jujitsu, and never show the integration. You never have a class that shows the integration, that shows the Jeet Kune Do, how the Jeet Kune Do methodology, how Jeet Kune Do principles would be applied in Muay Thai and Jiu Jitsu. Then you're missing an opportunity to instruct and inform your students about Jeet Kune Do. See, if what happens at your school is, okay, now we're going to do the Jeet Kune Do session, the Jeet Kune Do section, right? So we're going to do the jab cross defensive series. Okay, so I'm going to catch and I'm going to shoulder roll and then I'm going to go cross hook cross and then I'm going to do a lead hook kick, right? Then we're going to do the Jeet Kune Do trapping hands. So we're going to start from the reference point. Nobody fights this way, but it's just a way to start. And then here's my Paksao Guachoy. Here's my Paksao Guachoy Lapsao Guachoy, right? Here's my double Paksao, right? Chunchoy, right? Here's my Jiao Sao series, Jutsao, right? Or whatever. And that's how you present Jeet Kune Do, because you are preserving Bruce Lee's art. And so your idea to preserve Bruce Lee's art is to separate it from your Muay Thai, from your Jiu Jitsu, and do these things that were shown to people in the 60s and 70s and 80s. Then you don't understand how Jeet Kune Do is supposed to be used. You don't. You don't understand how Muay Thai came into the JKD world. It was because it was a high level of cardiovascular conditioning. Bruce Lee had a high level of cardiovascular conditioning, see? So some of us went in the direction of Muay Thai for that. Now, I am guilty of having a separate Muay Thai program. And why did I do it? It was because I had people who were coming through my door who wanted to study Muay Thai by itself, right? We did try to get a jujitsu guy in there. We tried on 2 occasions to get jujitsu people in there, but jujitsu people, in my experience, right, are difficult to deal with, and so that never materialized. But even if we had gotten a jujitsu class, and so we had a separate Muay Thai class, Muay Thai program, and we had a separate jujitsu program, I would still have made sure that we had at least once a week, we had a true Jeet Kune Do class that showed what Muay Thai brought into the JKD mix, right? The cultivation of knee and elbow, and in this day and age, clinch, and the powerful kicking and the cardiovascular conditioning. The Muay Thai attitude applied to your, let's call it JKD kickboxing. Then the the high percentage Brazilian Jiu Jitsu stuff, right? Why? Because since people out there in the world are very accustomed now to grappling and what have you, and so the average moron in the street might shoot in for a single or double leg takedown, and you might find yourself, right, with somebody between your knees in guard or what have you. You better know what to do when that happens. Heaven forbid that you're in a worse situation and you get taken down and you get mounted. You better know what to do. So my once a week class would have made sure that we dealt with that. At least once a week, we would do that so that you maintain the Jeet Kune Do philosophy. You maintain the art of Jeet Kune Do, and you show how Jeet Kune Do is a vehicle for the cultivation of well-roundedness. That's what I would have done. So if, like you say, Jeet Kune Do bouncer, that there are second and third generation people out there not teaching that, and they're just doing Muay Thai and Jiu Jitsu, ask them why they're doing it, and they'll tell you for themselves what they're doing it for, right? Alfred says make perfect sense, right? Sean Rudy, what's happening, Sonny? Right? Okay, Mark Black, have you chipped anything away? Well, if de-emphasizing rear rear hand or rear weapon dominance is chipping away, and reverting to lead weapon dominance is chipping away, then yes, that's one thing. Um, because in all honesty, Mark, it really annoys me when I see Jeet Kune Do people who seem to have forgotten that simple thing, that Jeet Kune Do is lead weapon dominant, right? I see people on seminar, Sifu Nasano says, okay, I want you to warm up and shadow box. And nobody shadow boxes anything that looks like Jeet Kune Do. Everybody shadow boxes Muay Thai. So it goes back, I guess, somewhat to what Jeet Kune Do bouncer just said. And I think that's because shadow boxing was emphasized by Ajahn Chai, right? And best of health wishes to him. Shadow boxing was emphasized by Ajahn Chai as an integral part of Muay Thai training. But shadow boxing, in my experience, was never emphasized as an integral part of Jeet Kune Do training. So shadow boxing for JKD people was replaced, so to speak, by Muay Thai. Why? No need for that. But it makes sense if all you're doing is just following along and not analyzing and not asking questions. You see? That's a big problem. So if that's an example of, if you could consider that chipping away, then yeah, definitely I've chipped away at stuff like that. Just a return, Mark, to lead weapon dominance, right? Oh shoot, Scorch! You're gonna show my ignorance here, right? So Scorch says, when it comes to wavy melee bladed weapons, do you have a preference between the Indonesian Chris and the Filipino Chris? Um, I can't even tell you that I know for sure which one is which, because I have the only thing I can think of is that the Indonesian Chris is a lot smaller, because I know that in my weapons collection I have two Filipino Chris's, right, and one Malaysian Chris. But I really I can't tell you that I'm an expert in, and you put one in front of me and I go, oh, Indonesian Chris, right? All in all, I don't know if there. I don't know. You could probably tell me better. I don't know what the substantial difference would be, other than size. I don't know if, I mean, is a Chris, right? I don't know what the qualities would be, the different qualities between an Indonesian blade and a Filipino blade. I remember once, and Scorch, you probably know this, that the Chris that type blade can even be found in like German weaponry, like there's such a thing. I guess I don't know if they call it a Chris too, but the Germans have it, right? Anyhow, okay. So yeah, sorry, Scorch. I'm a bad FMA guy, right? Okay, Jeet Kune Do Bouncer says I trained under a full instructor under Guru in Asano, and I was always told the art name was Junfan Gung Fu, and Jeet Kune Do was a philosophy. Oh yeah, yeah. I'm from Indiana. Okay, all right. Yeah. So there was a point in the history where Sifudan would say stuff like that. That Junfan Gung Fu was Bruce Lee's physical art, and Jeet Kune Do was his philosophy. Okay? So here's where I have to indulge in a little bit of Inasano speak, right? What Paul Bax calls Inasano, Inasano explainer. Shoot, now I can't remember. What did he call me? The Inasano explainer, the Inasano, not the Inasano whisperer. But I think Bill Seng says that I was the top Inasano apologeticist, right? Or apologist, whatever the words are, right? Okay. So when Sifudan says something like that Jun Fan is a physical art and Jeet Kune Do is the philosophy, in my opinion, what he means is that Jeet Kune Do is more than the physical aspects of Bruce Lee's art. There are also philosophical, and it was philosophy, right? It was a philosophy, it was analysis and research and a way of thinking that led to the creation of the name. So if you expand your thinking on it, you can go, well, when Bruce Lee changed the name of his art from Junfan Gung Fu, from the Junfan method of Gung Fu to Jeet Kune Do, did he physically change what he was teaching? Not so much. So Junfan could be the physical, but why did he change the name? Because of a change in his way of thinking. Oh, So a change in his philosophy. Yeah. Oh, so then Jeet Kune Do is the philosophy and Jun Fan is the physical art. Yeah, kinda. See, that's how that goes. And unfortunately, with that type of thing, those kind of utterances are not thought through as well as they could be or as well as they should be, up to and including the whole idea of I don't teach Jeet Kune Do because I promised Bruce Lee that I wouldn't commercialize Jeet Kune Do. So I don't teach Jeet Kune Do. I teach Jeet Kune Do concepts, not thought through well enough, and created more trouble than it was worth. So there are people in Asano instructors who whatever comes out of his mouth becomes gospel. And if he says it, then that is how it is. And so then they say what he said, they repeat what he said. Fortunately for me, I come from an era where there was talk after class. And so something like this could be discussed. And because I've been his student for 40 something years, I think I have a little bit of an insight into the meaning behind what it is that he's saying, and not so much it's like the interpretation of what he's saying more so than the literal translation. It's the interpretation of it. So yeah, I can remember when that kind of phraseology, that was the thing that was being bandied about. Jun Fan is the art, Jeet Kune Do is the philosophy, but that obviously is not what he meant. Look at his book. The title of this book is not Jun Fan Gung Fu, the art, and Jeet Kune Do, the philosophy of Bruce Lee. No. The title of the book, as you plainly see, is Jeet Kune Do, the art and philosophy of Bruce Lee. So no, right? I would not. Even when he was saying that didn't translate all the way down to me and get passed on to my students. No, not at all. So me and your instructor would have a difference of opinion on that, right? Frank's asking, did you get my email about the 13-year-old girl in California who fought off a grown man attacker? No, Frank, sorry, I didn't get that. Sorry, no. But I will check for it when we finish up here. Okay. Um, okay. Wow. Jeet Kune Do bouncer from Indiana is all over this. Why did no one elaborate on what Sifu Hartzell was doing with the trap into grappling? I know there is Sensei Eric Paulson, but he uses no Jun Fan trapping. I miss the old JKD. So again, I wouldn't say there's no one, right? Rick Fay, Greg Nelson, Pete Hetrick, Mick Shore, um, Tim Becker, um, off the top of my head. Burton Richardson, probably. Bert, I'm not so sure. But those people, um, it's the guy from Mark McFan. I'm fairly sure that those people still use trap into grappling a la Hartzell method. Um, Paulson could do it, but Paulson's um, approach is jujitsu and MMA. But if you ask Paulson, if you went to Eric Paulson and you go, show me a Larry Hartzell trap into grappling sequence, but before the words come out of your mouth, Eric Paulson could have shown you 3 sequences because he's that good. But I would agree with you if what you're saying is that his instructional method that we see online on his Facebook videos and what have you, they don't do a lot of the, let's call it old school trap into grappling, like what you would find in is that it? No. Yeah, whatever. Like what you would find in the Enter into Trap into Grappling book, right? So I wouldn't say that nobody has elaborated on it. I would say that there are people who have maintained it, and then I would say that there are definitely people who have elaborated on it, including Dan and Asano, because now it's kind of like enter, trap, and then the grappling can end up being something from jujitsu, something from shoot wrestling, or what have you. Which before he passed away, Sifu Larry was spending time with the shoot wrestling with Yuri Nakamura. So I wouldn't say that no one has elaborated on it. They definitely have. And in addition to elaborating on it, I am pretty sure that they maintain. I am pretty sure that there are people out there who still go Paksao Guachoy, Lotsao Guachoy, and go into the figure 8. I guarantee you, right? And they go into the figure 8, and when they get on the ground, right, then they stuff the V arm. They stuff the V arm into the crook of the knee and do the Yuri Nakamura shoot wrestling stuff. I guarantee you that they still do that, right? So yeah, I wouldn't say that nobody has elaborated on it. I think they have, and I think that they maintain it also. Okay. Magazine Retriever says 93 was a pivotal year in the martial arts world. UFC won, right? By early 1995, people were looking for BJJ instructors, and by the year 2000, people wanted MMA. Yes, you're not wrong at all, right? Not wrong at all, right? Okay, Del Mountain. Given that Shannon Lee and Diana Inosanto are the heir apparent to their fathers' respective systems of JKD, how much control do they have over JKD today? I got to look up the term heir apparent. What is that? What is because I want to be sure, right? Okay, so the literal definition of heir apparent is one whose claim cannot be set aside by the birth of another heir. So Diana Inosanto and Shannon Lee are not heir apparent. Now, if you mean they appear to be the heirs of their father's systems, right, then yes, but that's not what heir apparent means. Okay. But if what you mean is that they appear to be the heirs, that they're the people who are going to inherit their father's systems, no. Here's why. Respective systems. Dan Inosanto has a system of Jeet Kune Do that Diana Inosanto is going to inherit. Where'd that come from? No. Bruce Lee has already passed away. I think if somebody is going to inherit somebody else's system, like in martial art, it passes to that heir. It passes to that person when the founder, the grandmaster, the whatever passes away. Well, Bruce Lee passed away in 73. So if Shannon Lee was going to adopt the mantle of Jeet Kune Do leadership, then it would have been done already. So if now what we're waiting for, and I hate to put it that way, if what we're contemplating is when Sifu Inosanto passes away, Uh, but see, that's the problem with the word Indel. There is no Inasano system of Jeet Kune Do. It doesn't exist. Now there's the Inasano Academy, and I have no knowledge of what is in Dan Inasano's estate papers or what have you as to what happens when he's no longer around, what happens to the Inasano Academy. But I don't see anything, I've never seen anything that appears to point in the direction that Diana Inasano will inherit the Inasano Academy. But again, I don't know. I'm not an authority on these things, right? I am not a spokesperson for Dan Inasano or the Inasano Academy. Get that straight, right? I'm just a loudmouth with a decent memory. So, and Shannon Lee, to the best of my knowledge, Shannon Lee doesn't have much to do with her father's art. Shannon Lee has a lot to do with her father's legacy, almost as a thought leader, but not as a martial arts leader. Um, I don't think Shannon Lee has trained in JKD in 30 years, right? So, yeah, so no, so I disagree that they are heir apparent, or heirs apparent. And I disagree that there's a system, an Inasano system of Jeet Kune Do. So, how much control do they have over JKD today? Diana Inasano has control over what she does and teaches. I was going to say Diana has control over what she and her husband Ron, right, do and teach, but I don't know. I can't say that, right? So I will say that she has control over what she does, what she teaches, but not over Jeet Kune Do for the whole world. Jeet Kune Do at large. No, not at all. Not at all. Right? Jeet Kune Do Bouncer says, I was 19 in the 90s. Okay. Oh, you're an OG like me, right? I missed the official Junfan Gung Fu magazine. Oh yeah, the nucleus. Then I hate that the nucleus fell apart. Right? It sucks that JKD isn't flourishing like BJJ, MMA, and Thai. Yeah, yeah. It's our own fault. Nobody knew how to market it. You know, right? Sean Rudy. Thank you, Sean. That's very nice of you to say. Right. Jeet Kune Do Bounces. Thank you for starting this podcast. Passion is JKD and all those who train. Nice to get info. All right, thank you. That's nice. Right. Scorch. Scorch says the Indonesian Chris is more ornate and it's made from finer metals than the Filipino Chris. That's what I remember. I remember it being, man, more ornamental, right? The Indonesian Chris didn't look like something that I could use to run somebody through versus the two Filipino Chris's that I have. I could definitely run you through with those, right? Okay. Thank you, Scorch. Um, Frank says, I just taught my Filipina girlfriend some Dumog. She had never heard of Dumog. Well, but when we finish, right, Frank, ask her if she's ever heard of Panantukan. Ask her if she's ever heard of Buno. Ask her if she's ever heard of Layog. Ask her if she's ever heard of Kino Mutai. Ask her if she's ever heard of Sikaran. Um, but I bet you she's heard of Arnis, right? I doubt she's heard of Higot Hubad. And it's not surprising because Dumog is not, I mean, now, don't get me wrong. Over the decades, right, a lot of stuff about Filipino martial art has become like its own thing. You see? Because, right, you know how in JKD we had what was called the four ranges of combat, right? Kicking, punching, trapping, grappling. Okay, so, well, what in Filipino dialects, right? In Filipino dialects, what's kicking? Well, there's a thing called sikaran, right? And there's a thing called pananjakman. So now the Filipino martial art has a kicking. What's punching? Well, there's a thing called suntukan, or there's a word suntukan, right? And then there's a thing called panantukan. Okay, what's trapping? Well, if we tie up and hit, that means higot hampak. If we untie and hit, that's hubad hampak. So now Filipino martial arts has trapping also. Well, what's grappling? Well, there's dumog, which might be a word that means wrestle or something. There's layog, which is a word that refers to a thing that they do in like in Tai Chi. You know, when they uproot you, that they call sailing, right? There's a word tapon, which means to throw. There's a word kigag, which means to choke or to strangle. Um, there's a word buno that means now I forget what buno means, right? Then there's a word kunci or kunci that means, well, kunci is Indonesian, but so kunci means lock. And so with the popularization of Filipino martial art, some of these things took on a word now becomes an entire art. So now there's a Filipino art, there's a Filipino grappling art called Dumog. There's a Filipino guy on the YouTube that is showing, I'm pretty sure, is showing Filipino Dumog, and it's jujitsu, it's Brazilian jiu-jitsu. But what do I know? I'm not from the Philippines. So I don't know, right? But whatever it is that you're showing her, Frank, I'm sure it's good and I'm sure you're having fun and you should keep it up and do more of it, right? Um, Bouncer wants to know if I can ask. I can't ask anybody anything. Ask Paulson to make an 8 DVD series on trapping the grappling. I would be in heaven if he would do a series just once. Well, aren't there Larry Hartzell DVDs out there? I'm pretty sure they are, right? I'm pretty sure they are. But Paulson's Trapping the Grappling. You know where you might see those in the Inasano Definitive series, I think, right? But see, this is the thing, Bouncer. This is the thing. The classical traditional trapping, reference point, Paksao Guachoy, Loy Paksao. Paksao Guachoy, Lopsao Guachoy, right? Jiao Sao, Jut Sao, um, Lan Sao, Lan Sao Chanchoy, whatever it is that you call it. All of that stuff, because of jujitsu and MMA, it hasn't gone completely out the window, but it's kind of archaic, right? Now, when it is analyzed, when it is observed and analyzed by people who have never been invested in trapping hands, they laugh at it. Who fights like this? The asking hand. No, that's not the asking hand. That's the asking for it hand. Ha ha ha, Ron Goldstein, that's an inside joke, right? So nobody fights like that. But here's JKD people who are all about efficiency and simplicity and directness and what have you. But we use a thing in training that is not related to fighting. That's a no no in my book. So if we want to make JKD relevant again, stop doing crap like that. Here's Jeet Kune Do. Here's Bruce Lee's great art of Jeet Kune Do. We're going to do a reference point. We're going to trap from the reference point. And this is just the reference point. Nobody fights like that. It won't occur in combat. Then don't do it. Next, what you now you're going to be showing some more aspects of Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do that do not occur in combat, and you're going to have an excuse for doing that too. Don't do it. Take your trapping to a new level. Do what I do. No, don't do what I do. I'll tell you what I do. Right? People who go trapping would never work on me. I examine why it is that they say that. That's what I do. Right? So, but yeah, it would be cool if Paulson was to do some more videos, wouldn't it? Right? Um, okay, Scort says to piggyback on Dell's question, doesn't Linda Lee own the intellectual property known as JKD nucleus, which presumably would be passed on to Shannon Lee when her mother dies? Well, I don't know. I don't know what I don't know what the intellectual property known as JKD nucleus. Well, what is that? What is that intellectual property? Um, is that, you know, the material that we were all exposed to that went into the commentaries? Is that like more Bruce Lee notes? You know, we are not as fortunate as Richard Torres to have all the notes, right? Is that the intellectual property known as the JKD nucleus, or is the intellectual property materials that were produced during the lifespan of that, excuse me, of that entity known as the Jeet Kune Do nucleus, as in the magazines, and what have you? I don't know. But if it's intellectual property of the Jeet Kune Do nucleus and that gets passed on to Shannon Lee, that doesn't have anything to do with Jeet Kune Do in terms of the practice and the training of the art. No way. No way. Because they have been so long out of that aspect of Bruce Lee's life. No, of Bruce Lee's art. The preservation, promulgation, perpetuation, and promotion of Bruce Lee's art of Jeet Kune Do. They've been out of that for so long. I don't see how they would be able. No, and I don't think they have any intention of that or whatever. No, no, that's not their thing, right? Joseph. It is still my dream that JKD finds its way back to modern pop culture, as is mine, right? Given so much evidence of its efficacy in combat, right? Especially with people like Burton Richardson, right? The question at that point would be, how do we in fact bring JKD back to modern pop culture? That is the question. Or should we? I think we should. Definitely, I think we definitely should. But yeah, it's a question, Joseph, that you and I will discuss. You know when, right? Okay. All right. Thank you, my friend. Um, okay. Sean Rudy. You know, if Sean Rudy asks a question, I'm going to get in trouble, right? I find it interesting the number of people who will fight tooth and nail over specific verbiage. I'm one of them, right? But don't extend that same tenacity to actually training enough, including sparring, to where the verbiage fades away and true understanding takes place. Um, Well, because it's easier to talk up a storm, right, than to put stuff on the line. You know, Bill sang last Friday. I thought that was interesting what he said about Bruce Lee. That Bruce Lee, these are my words, not Bill's, right? But Bruce Lee could be guilty of talking up a storm, but never having really put it on the line. You know, um, I remember once talking with Cass, and we were like, well, if Power Side Forward is such a revolutionary approach, why haven't why has a huge percentage of professional fighters adopted it? Now there are some who have done that, but it's not everybody. So if it's a tried and tested and proven approach, don't you think by now more and more people would have adopted it? So um, it's easier it's easier to talk about a thing than to actually do a thing, Sean. So that's why, and you're right, because you know what you're saying about where the verbiage fades away and true understanding takes place. That's like akin to the whole thing about everybody has a plan, right? Until they get hit in the face, right? You know, imagine if they evolve to the point where they have a plan, they get hit in the face, and the possibility of getting hit in the face was all along part of their plan. Not that they expected or were hoping to get hit in the face, but they had a plan as part of their plan, a sub plan for when they got for if they got hit in the face. So now your plan, you still keep it. But most people, no, they don't have a plan. And there's a structured way, right? There's a structured way to include that type of thing in your plan. You know what it's called? Sean, you know this. This is for other people who have never heard it, right? I'll give you the short version. Learn the technique, practice the technique, put it into the, add the counter, add the recounter. Learn the technique, practice the technique, add the counter, add the recounter. That's it. That's your plan right there, right? Okay. Thanks, Ming. Bouncer. So that train with the Masters 2025 DVD. Oh, you're getting the DVDs. So I don't think that the DVDs ship from ship from overseas, but I don't know. I thought all of these could be um, downloaded, that these were all streams that you could download, that these were all downloadable from Gumroad. I didn't know that there was a DVD option. I know that Burton Richardson has DVD options sometimes. So you might want to look into that, Bouncer. See if you can just download, right, a stream instead of waiting on a DVD, right? And Bouncer says, I would like to see more videos of young Chad Stahelski. He was very good. Oh man. Well, I'll tell you about a video that exists. It's a video of Chad Stahelski feeding me the Tide Pads. There's a video of Chad Stahelski and me, and we're doing Hubud with the single stick. There's a video of Chad Stahelski and me. What the hell else are we doing? I forget what else we're doing, because and this might have been the 1993 Miami Inasano seminar, and Sifu Dan brought Chad to Miami. Then we might have. video of a young Chad and Eric Paulson when we brought them to um, to Miami. So there's video of young Chad Stahelski out there, right? But mine are in storage, have been in storage for 20 years or something. I really should I really should get rid of that storage because what do they say? If you haven't used it in 2 years, you don't need it. So I really should embark on a, a project to convert all that VHS stuff, right, digitally. Yeah. Oh well, we'll see. Right. Okay. All right. So that was everything from everybody in the stream. So let me go back to what had come in earlier. So Red Tiger, we talked about. Mark David Collins asked if I still practice Muay Thai. Right. So okay. So very recently, in fact, just a number of months ago. So this is what we used to do because I had a number of students who were like from the old days and from the old school, and they had a specific interest in Muay Thai. What we would do was every second and fourth Thursday of the month, we would do a Muay Thai class. Well, those people aren't around anymore, and so I don't do that. But what I did plan to implement next week is this: instead of converting the class into a pure Muay Thai class, we will use. So, Bucky, if you are listening, and if Bill gets a chance to hear this, you guys will be the first to hear about it. So they'll still bring the Thai pads and what have you. But what we're gonna do is to. It's kind of similar to what my favorite Jeet Kune Do senior, Cass Magda, what he does is um, a few Muay Thai drills, but then show how those Muay Thai drills can be JKDized. You see? So if in Muay Thai, so take for example what we call the Miami Muay Thai 5 count. So it's left jab and then right cross, right elbow, right knee, right kick. So that's all rear technique. So you take something like that and now you turn it into a JKD approach and you see how much of it is viable, emphasizing the lead. You see? So now, lead hand, lead elbow. Now, how efficient is a lead knee, right? And a lead hook kick? You check it out to see. Because remember, not always. Just because I said earlier that what we do is to, one of the things that I did was to go back to being lead weapon dominant. That doesn't mean that if I'm going to hit you 4 or 5 times, that it always has to be with the lead weapon. Doesn't mean that at all. I mean, sometimes that doesn't work. And come on, God gave us 4 limbs. Oh, talking about that, right? Talking about that. You know what really pisses me off? Since we're talking about Muay Thai, right? So put it in the comments if this pisses you off too. It's when I hear people talking about Muay Thai, the art of 8 limbs. Who the hell has 8 limbs? You have 4. I don't know where they got that nonsense from. Because we used to refer to Muay Thai in the old days as the art of 8 weapons. So you had 2 fists and you had 2 elbows, you had 2 knees, and you had 2 feet. That is 8 weapons. That's not 8 limbs. There's only 4 limbs. What the hell? You ever seen anybody doing Thai boxing and they have 4 arms and 4 legs? So now they have 8 limbs? What the hell is that? This is how I entertain myself. Forgive me, right? So yeah. So we will still be training. We won't be training Mark. We won't be training pure Muay Thai, but we will definitely be enhancing and modifying the Muay Thai a little bit. All right. Um, so I will finish up with this. So this comes from Brogan Lee Black Hawk Baker, who runs the Bruce Lee Seattle, Oakland, Los Angeles Facebook group page, right? Um, Wait, hang on a second. Wait, Sean says, though we all know there are three hands in Wing Chun. Okay, Ming, right? I'm trying to run a serious show here, right? So Brogan says, I was wondering, have you networked or collaborated with Tim Bescherer? That's my nickname for Tim Becker, right? Like blended podcast. So no, we haven't blended the podcast, but we have both appeared on each other's podcasts. So then Brogan asked me if I had any episodes with Terry Tom. No, and that likely will not happen. Tommy Gong, if I remember correctly, requested, never heard. Joaquin Marcelo, yes. Peter Chin, requested, not yet. Gary Dill, not yet. Robert Kirbo, suggested, not yet requested. Diem Nguyen, I recognize that name, but don't know him. Rodney Hitchcock, requested, but never, never. I was acknowledged, but right. Lamar Davis, more than once. Burden Richardson, more than once. Ron Balicki, more than once. Andy Norman, um, in definitely on the books, in the books. Justo Dieguez, no, simply because I know a lot of people who know Justo, but I don't even and I could probably track him down, but no. Lee Morrison is a name that I'm familiar with. I'm pretty sure it's a guy out of England, but no, I've never made any overtures towards him. Tim Tackett, yes, more than once. Joel Ledlow, yes. Octavio Quintero requested. Brandon Bent, yes, just a couple of months ago. Dan Asano requested more than once. Zane Isaacs, yes, more than once. And Felix Macias Jr., yes, once, and plan to do again. So I said to Brogan, it's pretty easy to find out who's been on the show. Here's what you do: you go to this thing called the YouTube and you do a search, Jeet Kune Do Dialogues, and you put the name of the person in. And I'm pretty sure it'll come up. It's that simple, right? So he had a lot of good names on there. And my friend Anthony Casey, I told you guys in the beginning, right? Anthony's like, oh, you just have concepts people on. You need to get Thomas Marks on. He's got the biggest YouTube JKD channel. And when you had Tommy Carruthers on, you got the most views and what have you. Yeah, yeah. And so not everybody that I asked to come on the show comes on the show, right? Like I just told you, there are some people that I've requested, and Anthony, you're not wrong. I would love to talk to Thomas Marks. I will talk to Tommy Carruthers again, right? Because Tommy has told me that whenever I'm ready, that he would come back on the show. But this idea that my show exists to please you, Anthony, not really. Now, here's what I want everybody to know. Anthony, right, loudmouth, I asked him to come on the show because I think that would get more views than any show that I've ever done. So we'll see. Ball's in his court. But if he thinks that his job is to tell me about all the things that I'm doing wrong with my podcast, I want him to come tell me live and in person. So we'll see what happens. All right. So that is it for me for today, right? So if you guys have any other questions, if you have any comments to make, go ahead and do that. I will take a look at this stuff. It's 7:30 here. I don't think I'll take a look at it tonight. Once I shut this down, the weekend starts, and I turn into a raging party animal. All right, so that is it. If you enjoy my work and you'd like to support the program, you know what to do. Go over to the YouTube channel, and where is it? Yeah, there we go. All right, and you can join over there, become a paid subscriber. The pittance that we receive from that goes to help promote the show in small ways. I do want to call your attention again to Wayne and Petal's breast cancer GoFundMe page. And so just make a note of that URL that's up on the screen and contribute there. I'd really, really appreciate it. Also, go to JKD Drills, um, like the page, become a follower, and then when I start sending stuff out on that, you'll be among the first to be notified of it. And last but not least, at paypal.me/unified MA Miami, paypal.me/unified MA Miami, the Jeet Kune Do Journey Volume 1, the raw but edited version. It's a PDF. You pay for it. You send me an email that says that you've got it, and I send you the PDF. It's not a real book. Like Nick Faruqi has a real book. I will turn this into a real book at some point, right? But I've been saying that for what, like 4 years, So, but it's there at paypal.me/unified MA Miami. All right. So that is it for this week. So until the next episode, where I just missed my thing. Right. Okay. All right. So that's it. You guys have a great weekend. This is Dwight Woods of Jeet Kune Do Rebel signing off. We'll talk again soon. All right. Take care.